Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads, and welcome to the 200th episode of DingoTalk. I am Carlo Guadagnino, the host of DingoTalk. This week, we are sitting down with the 2023 Division III National Football Champions, the Cortland Dragons, Red Dragons. But before we do that, we're going to tell you a little bit about Cortland. We're going to tell you a little bit about what we're going to see throughout this episode. We have official Mike D, the referee specifically. He's joining us in the overtime segment with Serenity. Coach Fitzpatrick is going to talk about the 2023 season. But before we get into all that, SUNY Cortland is located in Cortland, New York, has about 6,700 students. That's $24,000 or $26,000 before aid, $19,000 after aid. They have a 60% acceptance rate and a 74% graduation rate. Their top three majors are phys ed, elementary ed, and kinesiology and exercise science. And their website is www.2.cortland.edu. Obviously, you're going to want to talk to your coaches that are recruiting you. You're going to want to talk to the financial aid reps. You're going to want to talk to the admissions counselors, talk to your guidance counselor, anybody that can get you more of the information than the broad view that we gave you. That being said, as I said, thank you. Welcome to the 200th episode. Thank you for joining us for 200 of these things. Way more interesting guest than 100 episodes ago when it was this guy was the 100th episode. So without further ado, this is Coach Fitzpatrick.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Dingo Talk. My guest this week is the head football coach of the 2023 National Champions, SUNY Cortland, head coach Curt Fitzpatrick. Coach, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Carlo. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. You do a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. Coach, we're going to do this the same way we do every week. I'm going to put you in the time machine. We're going to send you back to your college days, and we're going to work our way forward. So my question for you is, how do you find yourself at St. John Fisher?
I had a great recruiter. Guy coached by the name of Buddy Sims. He's a legend in upstate New York. Great offensive line coach, and he made such an impression on me in the recruiting process. Coach Sims had a very unique way about him. So when I remember walking into my guidance office as a high schooler, you get kind of called down out of class to go down and see all these college coaches, and went down to see Coach Sims, and the way he shakes your hand, you shake his hand. He's an old school. He shakes by your forearm, and he just made such an impression on me, and he really made me feel valued. I had some really talented players on my high school team. My tailback played at Syracuse. Some other guys were really talented. And I was the quarterback. I was like the glue that kind of held everything together on our high school team. And he made me feel special, I'd been sitting in on meetings that, some of the coaches were interested in some of my buddies who were really, really good football players. But he made me feel special. And that St. John Fisher wanted to recruit me, and I'd gone on a couple visits, and when I went there, I just felt at home, and it was the right fit. The program was not as successful. They'd coming off a 1-9 season, I think, at that point, and had really been struggling. And our freshman class, and this is back in the year 2000, and by the time we graduated as a senior, I was the quarterback on the first St. John Fisher team to win the Empire 8 conference and go to the NCAA tournament. So it was a really cool kind of rise as we built the program. And then Fisher went on a run, about 10-year run from 03, 04 all the way to the mid 2014, 15. That was as good as any team had been at that point in New York, at least in Division III. Multiple NCAA tournaments and Final Four and multiple quarterfinal runs and all that stuff. So very proud to be a St. John Fisher alum.
And then, so after your 4 years, why was coaching always the plan? Because I see you went Okay. So what was the plan coming out of school?
Well, like a lot of kids who graduate, there was no plan, Um, and you don't know this. I know this now as a coach, kind of talking to our players. It's okay not to have a plan. Like that's all part of life. But when you're a college kid, you're panicked. I remember my last semester of college just being in a panic that, I was a business major. Fisher's a great school. I had a lot of opportunities. I just, I thought I had to go into the business world. You feel like you spend all this money and all this time and you have a degree and you have to go into it. So I did. I got a job and worked for a bank, and a year in, I just hated it. So I spent a year working for a bank and wearing a shirt and tie every day, and hated it. I was drawing plays at my desk and thinking about football constantly. And my brother, who was a teammate of mine at St. John Fisher, was a year behind me, and so he was still on the team the next year. And so I'm spend all my time thinking about their team and thinking about the game on Saturday and like all this other stuff. And I just my heart was not in it at all. And I just had a moment where I was like, I cannot live my rest of my life doing this. Like I couldn't see a path forward. I had no passion for it. And so I quit my job, and then got an opportunity to go back to St. John Fisher as an entry level assistant coach, make very little money, live at hit the poverty line basically, and coach the quarterbacks and just kind of work from there. So yeah, coaching was not always the plan, which I would probably never have had it any other way. I think that life experience has helped me and has helped me be a better coach as I, help to mentor my players over the years.
Now, Coach, returning to St. John Fisher, is that hard, being that you played with those guys and now you're the guy with the khakis and the clipboard on the
it was, and it was different for sure. Yeah, trying to think back, it was definitely had to know where your boundaries were, and it is hard because I'm really close friends with all those guys. And the quarterback on that team was Rob Kramer. Those two, I coached for Fisher for 2 years in 2006, 2007. The quarterback on those teams, Rob Kramer, is he was my brother's roommate. So I had known him and was friends with him. Now I'm coaching him, and well, I think he made it okay because he didn't care if I coached him hard and all that stuff, and he was great. But it was definitely some moments where I had to remind myself to kind of separate, and but it was all great. I mean, it was great because it was a place that was home to me, and so to start in coaching at a place where I was very comfortable, and could just focus and grow. And I found something I love to do. Even though you get into coaching, you don't start in coaching being rich or having any spending money or anything like that. But I just loved it and didn't care working all the hours. I wanted to do, I didn't see it as work. And that's when I knew that I had to try to make a career out of it.
Now, after your 2 seasons at St. John Fisher, you move on to Utica with, and I'm going to guess Coach Fagiano was.
Yeah.
So talk to us about that experience.
Yeah, Coach Fagiano, he was an assistant coach at St. John Fisher during my time playing there. Okay. And during my 2 years coaching there too, he was the defensive coordinator on those teams. And then he got the opportunity to become a head coach at Utica. And so he gave me an opportunity to be an offensive coordinator in my 3rd year as a coach. And thinking back on that now that I'm a head coach and have been a head coach for over 10 years, what a risk he kind of took in me. And I really appreciate that he did that, because he didn't have to do that, and it was his first head coaching job, and he saw something in me and gave me an opportunity to be a coordinator. So I went to Utica with him for 5 years, and a lot like our experience at Fisher. We had to build the program basically. Program was not successful. We had to do things the hard way and take our lumps and learn how to recruit when you're not winning all the recruiting battles, and you got to, fight tooth and nail as hard as you can. And, I probably was not ready to be a coordinator at that time, but, I think he gave me a chance, and I really got the chance to grow. And he's been a great mentor to me, how to run a program, how to recruit the right way, all that stuff. I believe he's been on your show before.
He has.
Yeah. So he's a great one to talk to. And so I was there for his first 5 years as the head coach at Utica. I was the offensive coordinator.
And then it's your turn. It's your turn to get your seat at the head of the table, Morrisville State. And why was that the right job?
I just felt like when that job opened up, that's not far from where Utica is. It's about a half-hour drive, maybe 40 minutes. So it was close enough. I knew a little bit about their program at Morrisville at the time. Morrisville used to be a junior college back in the mid-90s.
Okay.
And they restarted football in the mid-90s as a 2-year. The school was a 2-year school, junior college, and they were successful. And then around 2005, the college changed to a 4-year college.
Mm-hmm.
It went from a 2-year school to a 4-year school. And their football all their athletics went from being junior JUCO to being NCAA Division III. So I'd known a little bit about it, but again, it's kind of like in infancy almost, building a program. A JUCO program is totally different from a Division III program, right? So I'd known a little bit about Morrisville, and then when the job opened, I felt like I was growing at Utica. I felt like I was getting better, and I just kind of wanted to see I honestly just wanted to get an interview. Mm-hmm. That was my big thing. In 2012, I started preparing. Like someday, I decided that I wanted to be a head coach someday if I could.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to go, and I knew I didn't want to try to go at a higher level, Division I. Working my way. I'd already been a coordinator, already been a full-time coach. So going back to be the GA or whatever, I just wasn't in a position financially or whatever to do that. So. Mm-hmm. I want to be a head coach. So I started to prepare while I was the offensive coordinator at Utica. And then the Morrisville job opened and I applied for it. And I was able to get an interview. And I, wasn't really expecting necessarily to get the job. And then I got the job. So I was 30 years old at the time.
Wow.
Yeah. Just like when I became a coordinator, had no idea how to be. I mean, I was not ready to be a head coach, but you just kind of do it and get in there and do the work. The reason I brought up the JUCO transformation is that for Morrisville was that, again, it was a situation that I feel like I was ready for. Mm-hmm. Because I had been there as a player at St. John Fisher when you're going from, a team that loses almost all of its games and you go through the process and build. And when we got to Utica, it was the same kind of process. And when I got to Morrisville as the head coach, so that was what I knew. That's what I knew that, okay, here's what we have to do. Here's the mentality the players have to have as the head coach. Here's what I can do to help. And, mm-hmm. So I was at Morrisville for 7 years, and it was very proud of the work that we did there.
Now, going from a JUCO to a Division III school, is that similar to? I'm going to use, when I got to Bethany, Geneva was in that process of going from finishing the NAIA to being a full-fledged member of Division III. Is there certain things with players and whatnot that maybe don't fit into the Division III mold?
Well, by the time I got to Morrisville, this was in 2013. So they had been an NCAA school for 7 years.
Okay.
And so the players didn't cross over, but I do think it's a different mindset. Like when you're at a junior college, all the players are there to better themselves, to go someplace else. When you're at a Division III school, you're the end destination, ideally, right? So it takes a while to build that. Morrisville is a small school. It's a state school, so it is affordable. State University of New York. So it was affordable, and so we just had to. It was a build. They had won, I think, in the 7 years as a Division III school, Morrisville had won 10 games total in 7 years. but there were some athletes. I just felt, and it was a great opportunity. And I was, I felt like it was a deliberation because I really enjoyed my time at Utica at the time. It was a very tough decision, but it's kind of one of those things where you just bet on yourself and let it rip. And then, we won 3-7 the first year, and then my second year at Morrisville, we had some really talented players, a great quarterback in Lamar Johnson. He's one of the best players I've ever coached still to this day. And we went 9-2 and were co-champions of the New Jersey Athletic Conference, which we played in at that time. So it was a fun ride. And in the 7 years that we were at Morrisville, we had 4 winning seasons, which were the only 4 winning seasons to date, or they have had a winning season since I left. But so it was a great challenge and some great players and just great kids that, that I owe a lot to help me get the opportunity to be the head coach at Cortland.
Well, and that leads us to, you talk about betting on yourself. Your start at Cortland starts in a time where the world had kind of flipped upside down. So what is that experience like, and why was it the right time for you to move on to Cortland?
Yeah, that was a crazy first year. COVID was crazy for everybody, obviously, but so I got hired there. Before I got hired, I was there 3 weeks. No one knew what COVID was when I got hired at Cortland. And Coach McNeil, our previous head coach at Cortland, retired after 23 years. And I was fortunate to go through the process and get hired as the new head coach, and was working for 3 weeks. I remember I had just gotten through, the first couple of days, and then I had not exit meetings, but one-on-one meetings with every player in the program, and just getting to know everybody. And I remember it was the Friday before spring break.
Okay.
And I was having a team meeting to talk about spring practice, which was going to start right after we got back from spring break. So we were kind of setting the table after their week away. And I had the team meeting in the morning, and then that afternoon we got word that campus was shutting down. All the players were not going to come home from spring break. We were just going to stay remote for the whole rest of the year. And then I got to know them on Zoom, basically, just like you and I are right now. So the first 6 months was all Zoom, and I felt like the Grim Reaper every time I got on a Zoom meeting. It was to give them bad news: season canceled. We're not going to be able to do this, not going to be able to do that. So it was crazy. But we just had our banquet for this season just this weekend, Saturday, and one of the parents of a senior who was a 5th-year senior said to me, if COVID had not happened, all these guys wouldn't, like, this room would look totally different if COVID hadn't happened. And it was it was a really cool moment, and just a realization that, while it was hard in the time, and the thing I think that I tried to do the most is, like, even though it was kind of a depressing time, I know I had a very personally very hard time with, just being cooped up and as a lot of people did, right?
Yeah.
But looking back on it, I think everything happens for a reason, at least with our football program. I feel like, this season was such a storybook season for us. And it's cool to think back that, these guys, Cole Burgess wouldn't have been on our team if it wasn't for COVID, because he would have been graduated. This exact group of players wouldn't have been together at the exact moment. So, it was hard to go through at the time, but looking back on it now, I'm glad we did it. I'm glad it worked out that way.
Well, and it's always interesting. I'm sure the coaches don't forget it, but a lot of the people that weren't around a college campus while we were lifting some of those things, and 9 guys on this side of the field and 9 guys on that side of the field, and don't let them cross the 50-yard line, and we need to wait 6 hours before we can let anybody back. Like, there were a lot of, you guys were pulled in 85 different directions just to get yourselves back to a team sport.
Yeah, we had offensive linemen almost, fainting on the field because they were trying to go through practice in their helmet with a mask underneath their face mask. It's like, what are we doing here? It was a wild time.
So let's talk about 2023. First question, was there a moment this season where as you guys were going through the process of the weekly, you go to work, game day on Saturday, repeat. Was there a moment for you as looking at the guys going, you know what, if we can make a run here, and then obviously you guys do, but was that ever a thought for you?
Not really, honestly. Because I think the nature of our season, we knew, I think I knew that we had a chance to be a good team, a talented team. We had just been to the NCAA tournament the year in 2022 and 2021, and we had a lot of guys back. We had almost everybody back from 2022 coming into this 2023 season. So knew that we could be talented, and we had some good. Our recruiting class was good. We had a couple good, really talented linebackers, junior college guys that we recruited that were going to help us immediately, and so we were excited, but you never know how it's going to really come together. And then we lost the game in week 3 to Susquehanna.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was a game in which we had a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter with, I think, 5 minutes left or something like that. And lost that game. And that was it was a gut check moment for us. So that happened. So that really, looking back, best thing that happened to us, we learned a lot of hard lessons on that day. We learned how we have to coach and play to finish games the right way. We learned about, not looking at the finish line, staying in the moment, staying at the play, playing the play you're in. We learned, a lot of hard lessons that helped us. And hopefully now our team, I know I'm going to coach different because of that game going forward. Yeah. And that kind of set the mindset for our team. From then on out, we had no choice but to win the Empire 8 conference to get to the end, to get the NCAA tournament. We knew our strength of schedule was going to be very high. We played a very strong schedule, but the only way to the tournament, if we lost an Empire 8 game, we weren't going to get in the tournament with 2 losses with only 4 at-large bids. So it was like do or die every week, and our guys responded. And then as the season went on, we started playing better and better. And then we finished the season with the Utica Jug game, which is a crazy rivalry, and it's so emotionally draining and physically draining. That week is very stressful. It's chaotic. A lot of people are pulling our team in a lot of different directions, from tickets to alumni to just the emotion of the game itself, the press, the media, all the stuff that Division III players don't, players at Alabama do that every day.
Yeah.
We don't do that every day. So it's a little more stressful on us. And then we end that game. We had 3 offensive linemen injured in that game. And so we're kind of limping into the playoffs. We had no choice. We had no chance to think ahead, honestly. We were just trying to beat Endicott in the first round of the tournament. And that was a nail biter that came down to the wire. And then we got to play home against Grove City the next week. And we converted a 2-point conversion. And then they missed a field goal.
Well, that was going to be a question, specifically that game. What are you thinking as Grove City's lining up for a field goal that could end the season, basically, right?
Yeah, that's we couldn't get further ahead than that. We were in that moment. We didn't think about anything beyond that. We were just, if he makes that kick, our season's over. So I don't think the only time that I don't know about our players, but the way it went through, the only time that I thought ahead was at halftime of the Randolph-Macon game. And I didn't tell my players that until way after the season was over. But we were ahead 35-0 at halftime of that game.
Mm-hmm.
And our defense was playing so well, and our offense, and I was walking behind. I was probably a minute or 2 behind our team, getting back to the locker room. And I remember thinking, I was just walking by myself. There was no one around, thinking 35-0. I mean, I'm calling a running play every play of the second half, basically. And there's really not, and we're going to the Stagg Bowl. That was the one, the one moment in time. But the way it played, the way we were going with our games, we didn't even really have a chance to look forward. And I think the Susquehanna game had taught us that you have to stay in the moment. It doesn't benefit you to look down the road. Mm-hmm. You have to stay right here. Whatever's going to be is going to be, and that's out of our control. We got to, stay right where we're at, and try to play the best we can right now.
Well, and Coach, it really was a phenomenal 3-week stretch for sure. The Aurora game, the Randolph-Macon game, and then the Stagg Bowl. I know when we were picking games, there was a split between us on the Aurora game because we just weren't sure how
Alma.
that was. Alma, that's right. Sorry. And
Alma,
then I remember saying, going into the Randolph-Macon game, I said, Cortland played 4 almost perfect quarters. That's not something you normally see from a football team back-to-back games. And then the way the Randolph-Macon game started out, I mean, it was bang, 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 bang. And then, so now we get into the point. Last week, we interviewed Coach Spencer. We talked to him about the national championship game, specifically 2 plays. The first drive for North Central, where they end up, I believe it's an overthrow on a 4th down, and the 2-point conversion decision. Now, when we talked about it last week, we talked about how if you're looking at it statistically, that's the play you run. That's number 1 offense in the country. It's just a great play from one of those linebackers, scraping and fitting perfectly. What did you see that made you call the timeout originally before they ran that play?
Calling the timeout wasn't something that I saw from them. That was my plan right from the jump.
Okay.
So, I had a feel of their snap count. So I knew I could call the timeout right as they snapped the ball, right before they snapped the ball. And, what I think, what my theory was, is I want to see whatever their first play is. I want to be able to see what they were going to run.
Okay.
I'm an offensive coach. I call our plays on offense. I've got my 2-point plays on my call sheet, and I know that I have them in order. I have them. The one I'm going to call first is on the top, and the one I'm going to call second is next, and third, or however many you got. And the one that's first is first for a reason. The one that's second is second for a reason, right?
Yeah.
So, and it worked out. Worked out that we could call it, and the officials. So I let the official know exactly when I was going to call it and what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I called it. They blew it dead, and you can see they were going to run a sprint out to the field with a rub, and I think we had a decent call. We had a blitz on. We had a blitz called there, like a cover 0 blitz.
Yeah.
And it was going to be, I think it was going to be tight. He would have had to make a great throw while getting hit. But Hardy had a chance. I think he was going to have some daylight. Whether they completed it or not, you don't know, but they would have had some daylight. So when we came over after the timeout, our players, I called. So you saw what they were going to run. They were going to run sprint right, try to get a rub, be ready for that. The second play, we called a different defense. So we went from a blitz to like a picket fence zone, basically, a goal line zone. And, if they would have ran the quarterback outside zone, which is what they ran to the boundary, the first time the numbers and leverage would have been different because we were playing man and we were in a blitz look. In the zone look, it gave us extra people. That gave us an extra half a guy basically over there, and then our kids made a great play. And even though you got numbers, tackling Luke Lennon is not a guarantee. He's a phenomenal player. So I'm proud of our team. Our defense made a great play. But that's kind of how that all played out, and it's just one of those things. It could have went the other way. We could have had the first play stopped dead to rights and then got scored on after the timeout, but just how it works, I guess.
Now, Coach, what was your message to the team at halftime? Not to double back just a second. What was your message to the team at halftime of the Stagg Bowl?
At halftime, I mean, we felt pretty good at half. They are the number 1 offense in the country, and they only had 7 points on us at half. So, we felt optimistic. We had just, we had moved the ball. Our offense, we only had 3 possessions in the first half. Our second one, it was 0-0 game, and we were down inside the 5. We went forward on 4th and 2 and got stuffed. On, ironically, a quarterback outside zone play, they got stuffed, of our own. And then our third possession was a 2-minute right after their first touchdown that we got down the field and were able to scrape out a field goal right before half. So we felt like we had momentum, and we won the
Mhm.
coin toss at the beginning of the game, and we deferred so that we could get the ball. You defer to try to get the Bill Belichick double dip. You try to
Yeah.
score right before half and get the ball. And so we got a field goal, and then I felt good getting the ball to start the third quarter, that if we could score, that we would have the lead. And when you have the lead, I mean, you got a chance. So, and that's what happened. We scored the first drive of the third quarter, and then that gave our players confidence. And I remember our offensive guys saying on the sideline, Burgess, Lapp, Zach Boys, we have once you're up 10-7, well, they could score every time they have the ball. But if we score every time we have the ball, we're going to win or have a chance to win.
Yeah.
So our guys were very confident that we had a chance. And when you're playing North Central, we knew we were a big underdog, but our players didn't care about that, though. All you got to do is win by one. That was our mantra, kind of in the postseason, like survive in advance, basically. And so, yeah, once we got into the second half, it was like, all right, let's go. We're good on offense too, so let's see what happens.
And rolling into the 2024 season, you're going to bring back that starting quarterback. From what I hear of through the Twitterverse, there was some rumors that he is returning for would it be Zach's 5th year?
Yeah. His so he was a freshman during that COVID fall.
Okay.
So during the fall of 2020 was his freshman season. So yeah, this will be his 5th year in school, but he's been all along, he has been planning to stay for an extra semester. Zach's an education major, so he's going to be doing his student teaching. He's still saved his student teaching part. So he's he'll be back. He's a great leader and a great player. Obviously, I like that he's around. So
yeah, it looks like you guys, just watching the games that I watched this year, it looks like you guys have a great kind of coach quarterback relationship in the way that you communicate to each other when we get to see you guys. I mean, they don't have the cameras on you 24/7, but it seems that there's a good relationship there.
Yeah, he's a son of a coach. His dad was a coach and a longtime coach at Buff State, head coach and athletic director at Buff State. Zach grew up in football. His dad's been coaching him his whole life, so he's a very coachable kid. Like I can get on him, and not that I get on him a lot. He doesn't give me a lot to get on him about typically, but you can coach him hard, and he loves it. And when you're a quarterback, a very visible player in your program can take coaching like that, it sets the table for everybody else in the program. Then everyone can get coached. And I think that starts with Zach. With part of his leadership is being able to to be a guy on the team that if he makes a mistake, he owns it, and then if he makes a mistake and we're correcting him, we can that means that it's
anybody
anybody can get corrected, and I think that's a great one of the great leadership traits that he has.
Coach, what are you looking for in a Cortland football player? Obviously, guy got to be able to play football, but what are you looking for outside of those parameters?
Yeah, playing football, that's obvious. You got to be a talented player. Someone who loves football. And when I say loves football, the way I define that to our recruits is not if loving football means I love playing football. If you're a high school player that loves playing football on Friday nights, and the rest of it you can leave it, but you love playing football in college, that doesn't work that way. We want guys that love the process of football, everything. That loves being on a football team is probably the best way to put it, because if the only thing you love is playing in football games, what percentage of freshmen play in the actual varsity games? And there's some on every team, and there's some on our team. We had freshmen play for us. Gene Lubin made the game-winning tackle in the Stagg Bowl. He's a freshman. But we recruited 30 freshmen last year, and 3 of them played.
Yeah.
So if your only thing you're interested in is loving football, is playing football, there's a high percentage chance, if if those are your expectations, there's a high likelihood that you're going to be disappointed when you get to a college football program. So we got to define it a different way. And so we want guys who love being on a football team, love being a part of football, love having football in their lives. That's one of the things we look for in talking to the prospect and their family and talking to their coach and everything that we can find out about them. You know, if the only thing they like is playing in the games and they don't like the weight room, they don't like the, then, you know, we probably will try to recruit somebody else if we can. So we're looking for that. We need players who understand the value of a college degree and like why they're in college. They're not just here to play football. That's why I love Cortland, because we're an outstanding academic school. And if football ceased to exist tomorrow, this would be the kind of school that our players would love playing at. They wouldn't transfer. If football was not a thing tomorrow, they'd still be at Cortland. That helps, you know, that makes my job easier. It helps with retention. Guys aren't looking to transfer other places. You know, they're here because they're, you know, Zach Boyd's a phys ed major and he's going to be a teacher and a coach, or, you know, whatever. He's not going anywhere because this is where he wants to be. So, you know, the academic motivation seems obvious, right? That you're a college football team, the players are academically motivated, but some are just, you know, I've had guys that wouldn't be in college or wouldn't be at a particular school if it wasn't for football. Well, when football doesn't always go perfect, as you know. So if the football doesn't go perfect and you're only there for football, it's kind of a hollow transactional relationship. So, you know, that's not what we want. That's not exactly what we're looking for. You know, so and we want players who are selfless. You got to be willing to make it about everybody else. You know, our definition, our program of selflessness is it's not about you. You know, it's your job to make it about your teammates and your coaches, and it's their job to make it about you too. So it's a two-way street, but you know, it can never, your actions and your decisions can't be about you. It's your job to make it about everybody else.
Coach, you brought up an interesting point for your guys' season in 2023. If you lose one Empire 8 game and you become a 2-loss team with the current system, you're out. Do you think, and are we heading towards the expansion? Are we going to 40 teams? Is that where the tournament needs to go? I know that we're grossly under for percentage of programs versus who gets in.
Yeah, the access ratios, we're below the access ratio. Yeah, I think that's where it's headed. I think it's great. I think 40, you can't go more than 40 because we certainly can't be above the access ratio. That will not be good. But yeah, I think 40 is the right number. I think it's definitely, and I don't know for a fact. I'm not the one voting on all this stuff, but it seems like it's a matter of when, not if, it's going to happen. It's a matter of, you know, whether it's this year or the following. But I think it should be as soon as possible, because I think there's a lot of really good teams in the country that can win multiple playoff games that don't get into the tournament because they're second in their league. And how those 4 teams are chosen is very, you know, subjective.
It was definitely a cause for some interest this year, for sure. I know there was a lot of,
you know, and I'm on the regional committee. It's like, you know, you can only do so much. There's only so much you can do. So it's not like it even went. It did, you know, it is what it is. So I think adding 40 would help. I think there's a lot of deserving teams. It'd be a great tournament. Sure, it'll go, you know, the championship game would go later, but I'll tell you, you know, as at the AFCA convention, we were a team that just played for a national championship for the first time in our school's history. And our president probably would, whatever the cost is to play in January, you know, having experienced what we experienced, whatever it takes, that, you know, that's how special it is. So I can't see it being a negative.
All right, Coach, last football question, and then we're rolling into the random 5 and wrapping things up here. You've spent most, if not all, of your career in Division III. Mm-hmm. What is the significance to you, or what is the importance of the Division III level?
I think it's the purest form of college football. I think all of our players are here. They're not here because they have to be. They're getting no financial, you know, there's no financial reason for them to be here. They're not getting any financial incentive to play football. They're playing football because they love they love playing football. And so I think there's a great balance there. I love coaching Division III. It's not like I mentioned, I said it a few minutes ago, it's not a transactional, you're not in a transactional relationship. They're not here trying to go someplace else. They're here because this is where they chose to come and this is where they want to be. And so I think that's special, and I think Division III football is getting better and better. I think if you flipped on a game, I could not play quarterback now.
I couldn't play safety now. I know that.
Yeah. And then like a bunch of guys that are my buddies that played, offensive line, and the players are so much bigger and faster and stronger. And this scheme is much more, the football has evolved and Division III football has gotten better. And I think that, there you watch the national championship game, there are players on both those teams that could play at a lot of places.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad they don't. I'm glad they, my guys play for Cortland and, so it's just, I love Division III. I personally don't have interest coaching at a higher level. I think this is like, I think you can have fun. I think it's a great work-life balance. I have 3 young children, so, I'm excited to raise my kids around football. And I love being at Cortland because I think athletics is very important at Cortland. And it's not because of tuition driven. Our university, we have record numbers of applications at our school. And we have record enrollment at our university. So, but we support athletics and support football because that's part of our DNA at Cortland. And, that's, that part of it is worth some salary. I think, the fact that you're at a place that's stable, that where you can recruit really good kids and have a great experience.
All right, Coach, now it's rapid fire time. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Pinehurst, North Carolina.
Okay.
I'm a golf fanatic.
All right. What's the most important lesson that you've learned over your career?
Oof. Money isn't everything.
Okay. If you weren't coaching, and I'm going to eliminate being a banker, but what would your job be and why?
If I wasn't coaching, I would, at this point in my life, I probably would have figured out that I'd be a teacher.
Okay.
Probably math. I like math a lot.
Now, you see, there's not one that you get a lot. So, best compliment you've ever received?
A former player. This is back at Utica. Player who was a quarterback, was a backup quarterback. He's now a college coach. He's on staff at Rutgers. After practice, Coach Fagiano would get all the players in a huddle, and he called it what it means to be a pioneer. And so this is during preseason. The players who were selected that day would get up and say what it means to be a pioneer. And this player, Jared Kite, is Coach Kite down at Rutgers. I'll never forget this. He probably doesn't even remember he said this, but he said he referenced me and reference to the guys, how demanding I was of the quarterbacks and how he appreciated that. And that always stuck with me as a compliment in that, that I think it's great that a player that they feel like I'm demanding of their best, because I think that's what players ultimately want.
And then on the other side of compliments, what's the best insult you've ever received?
The best insult. Oof. Well, I will say that I got a few emails after the national title game from some North Central fans that were not very complimentary. I don't know why, but apparently, competing against North Central and beating, in my opinion, the best team in the country. is some sort of slight. They didn't appreciate our efforts that day. I'll just say.
All right, Coach, the last question, we wrap it up this way every week. Was there a question that you were expecting? And if so, how would you have answered it?
I was expecting you to ask about Cortica.
I was watching the time crunch, and I know that you got something to, so we might have to get you back on just to explain to us.
That's
unless
fine.
you want to take a stab at it real quick.
No, I mean, Cortica, amazing. It's one of the best rivalries in the country. Mm-hmm. The biggest little game in the nation, as it was once dubbed by Sports Illustrated back in the early 90s, late 80s. So it's awesome. I'll set the scene this year. I've been in 3 Corticas. Our second one I was involved in was at Yankee Stadium in front of 40,000 fans. So that says something, right?
Oh.
This year we played at Utica, and it's just a great environment. You show up, there's people everywhere. And so walking to the field, the game's at noon. So at 11, 10:55, we start our 5-minute walk with the first group for warm up, the specialists, the quarterbacks, the returners, those types of guys. And I'm walking at the front of the line. I lead out the first group, and Zach Boys is to my right, and Cole Burgess is to my left, the 2 guys, the line leaders. And we're walking up, and you can see the stadium off down the road at Ithaca, the way you can enter the stadium. And you could hear this roar. And we get up to the stadium, and this is an hour before kickoff. Both sides of the field are completely full with fans 1 hour before. Because it's such a hot ticket, you have to go in early. So every person that walks on the field, half the stadium is cheering, and half the stadium is, yelling curse words and, flipping you off and all that other stuff. And it's just like, it's the most fun. If you're a competitor, it's the most fun environment that I've ever been a part of. I love it. Absolutely love it. I love playing there. I love playing in Yankee Stadium. My first year in 2021 was at home at Cortland. It's just a really cool environment, and great rivalry, 2 great programs. It's just fun and special.
And so you get to come into your office every day and look at the Stagg Bowl and the Cortica jug, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's nice. There's 3 of them. There's three jugs. Yeah.
So I thought there was multiple jugs. I remember the picture went up when you guys after the game.
Yep, it's been every year you put the score of the game on there, so it's filled up. We're on the third jug now. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, Coach, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time to sit down with us. Hopefully, again this time next year, we're bringing you back on. We're having another conversation about it. For those of you sticking around, you know what comes up next. It's Overtime with Serenity Brown. This has been Coach Fitzpatrick of the reigning national champions of 2023, the SUNY Cortland Red Dragons, and we'll be right back.
Every other night another movie getting too hard, don't stand too close. You go off this way. Coming on the road, I don't care why I go. As soon as I get back, shit get straight. Do this all the time. This ain't no surprise.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? Welcome back. This is Overtime with Serenity Brown. That's Serenity Brown. I'm Carlo Guadagnino. Obviously, we're joined with somebody else. Mike D, the referee. Mike, thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on today. So my name is Mike D'Ambrosio. I am a New Jersey certified referee official for high school football and youth football. And I started a podcast recently called Whistle Talk, where I'm diving in deep with other officials, coaches, high school coaches, college coaches, and a couple other officials from all around the country. Just go over different things that we do as football officials and what our thought process basically is. And just trying to keep it fresh and hopefully bring some knowledge to everybody out there about what we do, and hopefully maybe some rules that people may be confused by and things like that.
Well, and that's why we're bringing you on today. I have learned about myself that many moons ago, I went to school originally to be a teacher, and thank God that I didn't stay on that path, because I am not a good teacher when it comes to explaining football to someone that is learning the game without having the background information that football players are kind of given through that learning process of playing.
I did not grow up watching anything, so I started from zero.
That's perfect. It's sometimes the best way to go is from scratch. So yeah, I got into it more so because I coached for 20 some odd years, and I thought I knew everything, but when I dove into the rule book a little bit more, it was kind of eye opening on some of the little things out there that I had no idea about, and how it changes from level to level. So it was definitely a learning experience for myself too.
Well, Mike, I'm gonna kick the microphone over to Serenity. She has 4 questions for you, and then I'll jump back in here at the end, and I got a couple questions for you.
All right, here we go.
It's all yours there.
Okay. The microphone's not blocking my questions. So the first question, and probably most importantly for me, is can you explain pass interference to me? I don't quite understand it, because isn't that the point, to not let them have the ball?
Well, yeah, to a point it is, absolutely. So basically, in the simplest terms, is when the quarterback throws the ball and the ball's in the air, everybody has the right to the football at that point in time. It's basically a free ball. So both teams, both offensively and defensively, have a right to catch the ball. It's just a matter of how they're going to defend, trying to have the other person not catch the ball. So typically you'll see a defensive pass interference. And what that is when the ball is in the air, they're either grabbing, tugging, pushing, or doing some type of physical contact while the ball is in the air to try to stop the receiver from catching the ball. So once the ball touches the receiver's hands, they could swat at it, rip at it, grab the arm, different things like that. But while the ball is still in the air, that you have to give them the right to try to make a play on the ball. So you'll see that a big play now, and make it a little too technical, is the back shoulder throws and stuff like that, where a lot of offenses are actually purposely throwing the ball back, receivers trying to make his way back to the ball, and the defender is running into them while the ball's in the air, and they're getting the pass interference call in that. So that simplified for you?
Yeah,
Pretty good answer.
actually.
It's a pretty good answer. He's an official. We could, I was questioning it for a minute there, Mike, but now that was a pretty good explanation. I could see you on a Saturday morning explaining that to me on the sideline.
He's tried to explain it to me once before, and I looked at him like he was an idiot. So that went a lot further.
I think my coaching background has kind of helped me be able to talk, because the same way I would sit there and question an official, and if you were able to come back and give me an answer, it shut me up as a coach. I'm like, okay, I tried to buy a call there, and it shut me up. So I try to do the same now. I try to help the coaches out too as much as I can, along with the players.
All right. The next question is, why do people say that you can call holding on virtually any play?
Great question. So I was a former offensive lineman in high school and in college. So that was my position. And I could proudly say I was never called for a holding penalty in my playing career. So there is a technique to holding. So legally, you are allowed to hold if your hands are inside the framework. And I don't know if my camera can see, let me tilt it down, inside the framework of where the shoulder pads are, and your hands are in tight. So that is legal. So I used to actually literally grab the back of the shoulder pads here, and I could, as long as I didn't extend my arms, I was kind of steering my opponent which way I wanted them to go. So there is holding going on every play if they're doing it properly. It's once now you start seeing the defensive person disengage, and you're seeing that shirt get tugged, or you're seeing the person get kind of pulled. And there's a couple different theories and things we key on to see But basically, if the hold is not happening at where the ball is being run, we're probably not going to call it. So we always say, make it a point of the attack type of call. So right where the play is going, if the hold happens there, we're going to throw that penalty. If the hold happens by a wide receiver on the left sideline and the ball is being run to the right sideline, we're going to talk to the kid and say, hey guys, keep your hands inside and things like that. But yeah, holding does happen very often, but it's just a matter of how you do it and when then you disengage as the offensive player. So once that defensive person starts making their move or disengaging and getting away from the block, now you got to let go. And I could say it as a former offensive lineman, holding tends to be a lazy penalty. And what I mean by that is the offensive linemen aren't running their feet. Their feet kind of stopped and they're just kind of holding on instead of running their feet. If they keep their feet moving and keep going, we're probably not going to call it as long as they are working as hands inside.
Makes sense.
Makes sense.
Last up.
Okay. Last question, a two-parter.
Oh,
What
boy.
would you say is the easiest calls for an official to make? And then on the other side, the hardest calls to make?
So my position as a football referee, I'm an umpire. So I'm in the middle of the field on the defensive side, and I'm focusing on the offensive lineman in general. So probably the easiest call for me is going to be a false start. And that's when an offensive lineman basically goes before the ball is snapped. And typically it's they're picking their hand up off the ground or they're starting into their back pedal if they're pass protecting. So that's probably going to be the easiest call in that aspect. And the second part was, what is the hardest one?
Yeah.
So it's gotten a lot better, but we're always really looking for the safety fouls. So the spearing, the defenseless receiver and fouls like that. And a lot of them are judgmental type of plays. So they're kind of hard, and we're trained, see it, process it, and then throw it. So if it doesn't look right, probably wasn't right, but make sure that you see it first, take a half second to breathe and let it kind of marinate a little bit before you throw it. But getting those fouls like, interference can also be one that is difficult too, because it's still a kind of a judgmental play. Did the defender get there before the ball got there? Was the defender maliciously trying to take the other player out? So there's different things like that where there is a little bit of gray area, and each official sees it a little bit differently. Hopefully, if you get a good crew, we're able to talk it through. And I've thrown flags, and my ego is put aside where I asked my crewmate, hey, did you see what I saw? And they're like, no, Mike, you missed that one. I'm like, all right, wave it off, wave the flag off. It was incorrect. So, but if you see it, it's again, gray area. It's those safety things. We want to catch those safety ones and make sure that we have them and keep all the kids safe as best as possible. So I hope that answered your question. I'm kind of vague on that one. I apologize.
All right, I'm gonna give Carlo the microphone back.
Does that cover all
All
the
right.
things that you?
Yeah.
All right. So now we're gonna do a little bit of football talk here. Two football minds. I'm gonna try to pick the official's brain here.
All right.
First and foremost, pass interference gets called in the first quarter, right? And it's like you just said, it's a judgment call. It might have been same time, might have been a little early on the defender's part. What goes into making that call at the end of a game? Like, does that cross a referee's mind as the situation, as the clock's running, where we are in the game? Does it matter?
For a really good crew, it shouldn't.
Okay.
It should be consistent across the board, to be honest with you. If the game's, say, possibly a blowout or something like that, then maybe we might tuck the flag a little bit deeper into the pocket where it's not going to help a team one way or the other of the outcome of the game if the game's already out of hand. But for example, I worked a game. I was on the sideline for a state championship game where with no time left, they threw a touchdown pass to win the game. And the official right there threw the flag. It was offensive pass interference. And it was at Rutgers. You could see it on the video board. The kid pushed off to create space and then went up and made the catch. Very athletic, but the guy saw it, threw it, and made the right call. It was definitely the right call. And to stay PG when we were done, and even the state assigner at the time came into the locker room. He said that one, let's see, a lot of moxie to make that call, because one team is going to be mad one way or the other, because if he didn't throw the flag, then the other team would have been, oh, it's interference. He did throw the flag. The other team took away a touchdown. So it's always that gray area. So you want to be consistent across the board with it. You're either calling it or you're not. I can be honest with you, when it comes to holding penalties, if I'm not throwing what looks to be a slight tug, I'm going to be consistent through the game. If I'm not calling it in the first quarter, I'm probably not going to call it in the fourth quarter. If I am throwing it in the first quarter, I'm probably going to throw it in the fourth quarter. So things like that. So I try to stay consistent across the board with it.
Now, the next situation I wanted to throw at you is obviously you get into rivalry games, you start getting into like you just said, if a game maybe is out of hand at some point, at what point do the officials become aware of the level of chippy and, oh, we better really keep an eye on this because it's getting out of hand? At what point do you step in, and is it player first, then coach? Do we go to coach first and then continue to talk the players through it as the game's going on? How does that play out?
So with my crew in particular, we like to do a lot of preventative officiating. We like to talk to the kids from Jump Street. And that's one of the luxuries that I have of being in the middle of the field. I'm standing with the defense, with the defensive linemen, with the linebackers. And we're not supposed to anymore, but I will stand over the ball and address the offensive line when they come out of the huddle and say, guys, enough. If I hear anything or if I see anything, we're going to bang you next time. So I have that ability to be in there with them, and I like to build a rapport with the kids. I'm a teacher, so I work with high school kids all the time, so I'm able to kind of talk with them at their level. But I like to talk with the kids, build the rapport with them, and go that route first, and then talk to them. Hey, 72 enough. Hey, 72 enough. And one of the things that we do in our pregame conference with the coaches, myself and our crew chief, our head referee, we always go and talk to the coaches beforehand, and we say to the coach, listen, coach, we don't like throwing the 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, which is the verbal stuff and stuff like that. You throw a punch, you got to throw that flag, different things like that. But when the kids are talking trash to each other, rivalry games, things like that, we don't want to throw that flag. So we'll go over to the coach and say, hey, coach, listen, number 56, do me a favor and talk to him. And what we tell them is that doesn't mean take him out of the game. That doesn't mean anything like that. But we're letting you know, coach, number 56 is getting a little bit out of control. Do something to calm him down before we have to throw the flag. So if the coach, and a lot of coaches will pull the player at that point in time, we're not throwing the kid out. We're not throwing the flag, but we're letting the coach know, let the coach deal with it. If the coach doesn't deal with it, and then it still continues, and we've talked to the player, we've talked to the coach, now we're going to throw the flag. So that we try to do it preventative wise.
And then my last one more pertains to the communication with the coaches. I grew up, you had your head coach was normally a little bit more calm with the officials and had like a very good repertoire with them. And there was always, in my cases, there was always a defensive coach that may have gotten a little bit more excited. The offensive coach doesn't want to say anything to an official because you're not trying to put any type of thought in the brain. How do you deal with the different personalities of coaches? Because some coaches, that's just how they are. They're very eccentric. They're very rah-rah. As soon as the whistle blows, it's time to go. And then there's other coaches that are, hey, man, why'd you make that call? And I know, I'm sure that you get very polite conversations every time a call gets made. But how do you deal with the different personalities of a coach?
So it's funny that you ask. So when I started out officiating, I was a sideline official. So I was right at the line of scrimmage. I was right where the coaches were, especially the offensive coaches calling the plays. So I was right in the mix of it at the time. Now I'm in the middle of the field, so I don't hear it as much, which is a little bit better. I'm not going to lie. But for me, having the coaching background, it truly helped me out a lot, because I saw how some people would address the officials and then how some officials would then address the coach. I'm doing a job. They're doing a job. It's a violent sport. I understand that it's an emotional sport. So I'm going to give the coaches a little bit of leeway. and I'm going to let them talk. I'm going to let them get the stuff off their chest that they want to get off their chest. And I'm going to let them speak. And then I'm going to say, okay, coach, I didn't call that because of this, or I called that because of this. I learned as a coach on how to talk to the coaches, if that makes sense. So I learned on what I didn't want to hear, because I would have officials come up to me, because that's what I saw, coach. So tough, deal with it. And that's not an answer. I'm out there to coach the kids up. I want to know what my kids did wrong. So if you could tell me, coach, 56 was holding, he would grab it. You might not have seen it from your angle, but that's why we threw it. That tends to calm the coach down a little bit.
Yeah.
Some will be, I agree to disagree and things like that. And that's fine. But again, it's the nature of the sport. And I always joke around that I'm like, coach, you got to come up with something better than that. I said that 20 years ago. So come on, I was in your shoes too. So you got to give me something better than that. So if I can do what you just did there and make the coach chuckle, even for a half second, it kind of breaks the ice a little bit. So, and again, just like I do with the players, I like to keep the communication on the sidelines going too. So I'm always talking with the coaches about, all right, coach, let's get the kids back. Or coach, just watch this, kid, watch that. So I'm always communicating back and forth with the coach, just because it makes them feel a little bit more comfortable. If I'm quiet and not having any type of conversation, I kind of seem a little bit standoffish, and that tends to rub some coaches the wrong way. So if I can build a little bit of a rapport with my sideline, I like to do that. And that usually helps me out. And it's more even for my own safety too. By keeping the coaches back and keeping them on my side, it's keeping the sideline clear for me to do my job. So yeah, just keeping the communication open, both with players and coaches. And again, it comes down to preventative officiating. If we can talk our way through it, I was trained, our job is to spot the ball and get the clock going. If we can do that, the game runs smoother. The kids have a better time. Nobody knows that we're there, and everything is safe. That's a perfect night in our eyes. So that's our motto, kind of.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, Mike, I want to say, first off, I want to extend an interview or an invitation for an interview. So we're working through words. English is a tough thing sometimes.
It is still early in the week.
Let me try that again. Mike, I would like to extend an invitation to have you come back here in a couple of weeks and do an interview with us on the show.
Absolutely.
And I want to say thank you for being a part of our 200th episode here. And to those of you watching that have been with us for all 200, again, way more interesting of an episode than the first 100 with me. I was the guest. It wasn't, it's not a great story. I went to Bethany. I left Bethany. Now I'm in Morgantown. There's the story. So I hope that you guys will stick around with us for another 100. I hope that she'll be around for another 100. Mike's going to be part of the next 100. And we'll be back next week, Chuckleheads.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Dingo Talk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.